Hey everyone, this is your DUMC Daily Video Devotion for Tuesday, May 26, 2020. So last Thursday was what is known in the church as Ascension Day, that point 40 days after Easter, but 10 days before Pentecost, when we remember Jesus ascending into heaven and taking his place at the right hand of God. And so we're in that short week in between when Jesus left the earth, but before the Spirit descended upon the church. And I have to imagine that this was a time in the life of the disciples when they felt very disorganized, very disconnected, incredibly weak, because they no longer had their teacher with them, but yet the counselor, the Holy Spirit, had not yet come to fill them and to guide them. Now, in his letter to the Romans, Paul says that the Holy Spirit helps us in our weakness with groans that words cannot express. It's kind of an image of creation being in labor, striving to give birth to something new, but not having the strength to do so. And in those moments when we are feeling disconnected, when we're feeling disorganized, when we're feeling weak, when we are striving and falling short, Paul says that it's the Holy Spirit that comes and intercedes and bears down with us in ways that we just fail to be able to describe. My family spent this past weekend at the lake. We just got back a little while ago, and while we were there, we listened to a lot of REM, one of my favorite bands, an Athens, Georgia band that was big in the 80s and 90s. And listening to that music reminded me of the great Howard Finster, a rural Baptist preacher and artist who's probably best remembered for having created a lot of the cover art for REM's albums, but he's also really well known for having been the generator, the constructor of Paradise Garden in Somerville, Georgia. Now, most of the sculptures in his garden are not what you would find in the Louvre or the High Museum of Art, because most of his sculptures were assembled from objects that he would have scavenged and repurposed from local trash heaps, things like hubcaps and bicycle frames and even a few bedpans. Finster said that it was his love of the gospel, that it was God's Holy Spirit at work in him that helped him to kind of tie into the ongoing work in the world that he saw God doing. It's what led him to breathe life into these objects that had been discarded and thrown away, to turn them into something new, to turn them into pieces of art. Now, Finster's work is another testament among many to the power of the Holy Spirit when it gets inside of us. The Spirit of God that led Finster to change a tower of bedpans into a tower of beauty is the same Spirit that hovered over the waters of chaos in the beginning and gave birth to creation. It's the same Spirit that reanimated a pile of bones in the desert, the same Spirit that gave life to a dead body. It's the same Spirit that rushed into the upper room where the disciples were sitting and waiting to see what God was going to do next. And I have to believe that if God's Spirit can do all of that, then we can be assured that there is nothing so weak or disconnected or broken in any of us that God cannot restore, that God cannot make new. And I think that both as individuals and as the community of the church right now, we find ourselves in circumstances of weakness and disconnection and brokenness all the time. But as we continue to travel towards Pentecost Sunday, my prayer for all of us is that the Holy Spirit would come and intercede and get to work and groan with us once again, so that together we might work with God to take our lives and create something new and beautiful. I pray that God would bless you and keep you, and I look forward to seeing you all soon.